What secret was revealed when cleaning out the home of a deceased family member?
Experience 1. We all knew this one uncle had a second family. We expected drama at the funeral. No one was expecting his third family to show up. Wife. 3 kids. This new family knew the rest of the family by name from pictures. How we are all related, names, hobbies. That was a wildly bizarre experience. This particular uncle was the second oldest of 11. My mom is the oldest. He was allegedly a long-haul trucker. He'd stay with his legit family, the one we all went to his wedding for, had 1 daughter. His other trucker brothers, the other 5, knew he had gotten a girlfriend pregnant 5 years before he got married to the legit wife and proceeded to have 4 more kids with the GF. Again, the brothers knew but no one else. He'd leave to work for 2 weeks. But he'd actually spend 1 week with his legit family, the next week with the girlfriend, and work 1 week. Logically, at his funeral, we found out he never went on any long-haul trips. He'd just hopscotch from one family to the other, week per week. None of his families lived particularly well, all the wives worked to make ends meet, and he only left behind his clothes and metal detector. Even his big rig was actually his legit wife's since she came from money. She bought it for him to work, but it was never really his. Experience 2. Many years ago, I went with my dad and aunt to clean out my great-uncle's apartment after he passed away. He was never married, had no kids, and lived, we thought, very poor. Tiny apartment with a twin bed, table and chair, a couple of pots and pans, a couple of pants and shirts, and that's basically it. As we stripped the bed and moved the mattress, we were shocked. He had hundreds of stacks of $10 bills, wrapped in rubber bands, under his mattress. They were all $10 bills. He lived during the Depression and didn't trust banks, apparently, but we had no idea he had so much cash. He never spent it on anything. Just bundled it and saved it under his mattress. Some of the bills were so old and yellowed. It equaled thousands of dollars. We had no idea. Experience 3. This isn't cleaning out their home, but when my husband died a few years ago, I found several notes/letters he had scattered in various places around our home, written to me in advance. He had terminal cancer and knew he was dying. Some were marked open when you can't stop crying, open when the holidays are too rough, open when you have to put one of the cats to sleep. They didn't contain any secrets, but they are heartbreakingly beautiful. Experience 4. My dad was in hospice at home for a couple of months before he died of lung cancer, and when I went to clean out his house, I found that he had already sorted and packed away most of his personal treasures in a couple of storage bins. It was heartbreaking all over again, thinking of him sitting there packing up his own life, knowing it was coming to an end. Experience 5. We knew my originally British, naturalized Canadian great-grandmother had been an enthusiastic amateur historian who had been fascinated by Britain's war with Napoleon, not for the least reason because she was herself tangentially related to the Duke of Wellington's family via a cousin's marriage to his son's nephew, or some connection equally obscure and tenuous. What we didn't know is that, likely in preparation for a book she never wrote, as a young woman she had actually interviewed several dozen elderly English, French and Spanish veterans about their experiences during that war, including 3 actual survivors of Waterloo, 2 English, 1 French, and an aide-de-camp to Spanish General Francisco Javier Castanos. At the time he handed the Napoleonic army its very first defeat in the field, and captured nearly 20,000 French troops at the Battle of Bailén, 1808. But there it was, stored in a wooden egg crate under her iron-framed bed, among old calendars, untested recipe clippings and copies of Family Circle magazine, a manuscript with nearly 300 pages of transcribed military memoirs all laid out in 3 languages, in which she was fluent, in her elegant, Spencerian hand. My parents donated her manuscript to the Imperial War Museum, where no doubt it will never have human eyes laid on it again. Experience 6. Not a secret but a near secret. My grandfather, who spoke English as a third language, was a bit of a hoarder. Lots of old crap stockpiled in his basement, but well organized. Imagine a generic episode of Hoarders but with a prepper OCD vibe. Everything was sanitized, stacked/nested, and grouped logically. It was like the stock room for a store that wasn't yet sure what products it was selling and wanted to be ready. So, we find a cylindrical container that was kind of heavy for its size, and it had the label Old Penis. It was one of those black plastic film containers. Hesitant, but curious, we removed the lid. It contained a collection of 1-cent pieces which had been minted in the first half of the 20th century. Part of me was disappointed, and part of me was relieved. Edit, I'm glad so many people got a chuckle from the mystery of my grandfather's old penis. It was an innocent typo, but he was a jovial man and would have enjoyed knowing it made so many people laugh. Experience 7. My dad passed away in 1994, I was 28. While going through his safe I found some adoption papers. While reading through them I got excited at the prospect I might have a brother out there somewhere. I was raised as an only child, but couldn't understand why my parents never told me that they'd adopted a child but never told me. After rereading them, I realized that the papers were about me. After confronting my family about this, turns out everyone, family, close friends, I mean everyone, knew I was adopted. Except me. That was a fun day. Experience 8. My dad hid money all over the house, not huge amounts mind you, but $60 here, $120 there. Felt like a bit of a scavenger hunt when we were cleaning out his stuff. He was always a bit of a sneakily generous guy, always gave me and my brothers a secret handshake with money tucked in his palm when we'd go back to school after a weekend home, etc., so wouldn't be surprised if he'd done it intentionally. Made us smile every time we found some. I think the final total was somewhere around $800. Experience 9. I'm African American and my husband is white. My father faced a lot of prejudice during his lifetime, and I was terrified of telling him that the white guy I'd been on a date or two, which I was getting serious. The first time I brought my now husband home, my dad was courteous but distant. Miraculously, by the second time, my father literally gushed all over my husband. Even my siblings were shocked. When we got married, he was beaming. It was odd, but I was just happy my husband had won him over. My mom died in 2014 and my father in 2021. When my siblings and I went to clean out the house, in his safe along with other important documents, we found letters that my husband had written to my father 24 years before about how he felt about me, how he was serious about his relationship with me, how he was planning to go to law school, he did, he's an attorney now, how he respected that he'd gone through so much in his lifetime, and eventually how he loved me and how with his blessing, he was going to propose. My husband never told me he'd written to my father, and my father never told me he'd been corresponding with my husband. It was so emotional finding those. I still tear up when I think about it. When I got home, my husband finally showed me the letters my father had written back. Experience 10. After my grandfather died, I asked my dad to quietly go through his dad's bedroom while I took my grandmother out to lunch. I explained that Granddad might have racy magazines about, that would be upsetting to Grandma if she found them. So just, be a good son and save your mom from that. When we got back, my dad was nearly hysterical, half laughing, half barfing, and pulled me into the garage to debrief. Apparently, my grandfather was exactly the devout Catholic that he had appeared to be. And what my poor father had found on the bedside table was a stack of cheesecake pictures of his own mother. Edit, man, I'm so pissed off. Some a-hole at BuzzFeed changed the story to say my grandfather wasn't the devout Catholic he appeared to be, instead of what I wrote, which is that he was. thus hinting that this story is some unholy nightmare about him having photos of a family member other than his wife. God help them if I find out how to punish them for that. My grandfather was on the beach in Normandy. He was a fine man and deserves better than to have those idiots making lies about him. Experience 11. A diary with only a few entries from my uncle who lived alone. One of the entries was about how sad he was to have never met anyone or had children and how lonely he was. Broke my heart. Edit wow. Sorry to depress so many people on a Friday night. My dad/his best friend actually found the diary and saved it from the house before all the other family pounced. My dad didn't care about material possessions, but he wanted to protect my uncle's thoughts. It did feel wrong to be reading it, but curiosity killed the cat. Some of these commenters seem like they need a pep talk. To all those saying that they are going to end up like my uncle, if you don't want to, you don't have to. Your life isn't over until it's over, but it's up to you and only you to get what you want out of life. Step out of your comfort zone, maybe less time on Reddit, do something new, volunteer, join a club, maybe move to a new place, or get a new job. You never know who you will meet. My brother sat in his room for years drinking beer and playing computer games, but one day he decided to give rock climbing a go. He now manages a climbing wall place, is mega fit, and he met a lovely woman who loves also climbing, and he spends his weekends on cliff edges around the UK. I finally found my partner online dating after moving from London to Liverpool. Yes, online dating sucks so much, especially in London, but it can work. Kissed a hell of a lot of frogs. Experience 12. Mine was a confirmation of a wild story. My grandfather served in Korea. For years there was a tall tale about how he won a house in Korea, unsure how to phrase this politely online, that included the family who owned it and essentially anyone who worked there in a game of poker. When he returned home, after a few years of receiving letters and small payments, my grandmother told him to give the ownership back to the family. I don't think anyone really believed him when the story was told, over and over again. My grandmother died when I was young, so couldn't ask her if it was true. When he passed away and we were cleaning out the house, we found the letters from the family and the letter from the lawyer Gramps used to officially return ownership. My grandpa owned a pleasure house in Korea, is a sentence that's hard to say. Experience 13. My grandpa died when he was 80. His wife died 21 years before him. She was only 55. He never really got over it. When we were cleaning up his stuff, we found an old simple birthday card written by my grandma for my grandpa a couple of months before she died. On the back of the card, there were 21 lines written in pencil. Each year, my grandpa would write on the back of the card the date and the year of his new birthday, with a different small note beside it each year. Like,
Miss you terribly this time.
or,
You would have liked the weather today.
all up to his last birthday. Broke my heart. The greatest love I've ever witnessed. Experience 14. My parents were getting back together. Dad died at 50 of a heart attack. Mom was devastated. Her health declined rapidly, and she died at 49 3 months later. I cleaned out both their homes and found calls, texts, and love letters. They wanted to be together again but didn't want to put their kids and grandkids through a reconciliation until they were confident it'd work out. I knew she'd be devastated. They had been together almost 30 years, but they were 2 years divorced and casually seeing other people. They seemed to be thriving apart. So, it was a shock when the grief was so strong that it took all the life out of her. She died of cancer, but the doctor also diagnosed her with failure to thrive brought on by the loss of my dad and said that it may have been possible for her to live longer and even receive treatment if the failure to thrive hadn't taken everything she was before her cancer diagnosis. The only thing worse than losing my dad was watching my mom live without him, so at the end of the day, I'm grateful she didn't live without him for long. She never would have had peace here again. She found her peace with him on the other side. Experience 15. I'm a huge dork. Have worked in 3 comic shops. Have a huge collection. When the GF that would eventually become the wife and I moved into a house together, she flipped her crap about how many long boxes of comics I had and the space they took up. Sports cards and binders of other non-sports cards, huge Magic the Gathering collection as well. We lived in that house for 6 years. Me and the son moved out after she passed away. As I was going through the closet my comics and binders of cards were in, I found 2 small boxes that were not mine. I found her collection of Pokemon cards and a full set of Nightmare Before Christmas cards, with her handwritten notes on the set list. She had added her small collection of books to mine without me even knowing. My wife was a secret nerd.
We hope you enjoyed listening to today's stories. If you want to see more stories, check out these videos or check the links in the description for more videos. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And ring that notification bell.